Leah, how close are we?
It's 7 o'clock.
All right. So we're going to call the September 12th, 2024 Portsmouth Planning Board meeting to order. We have a quorum. First up, I believe we had some changes, continuances, et cetera. Ms. Hitchin?
Yes. Would you like to go through those first?
Yeah, so the first one at the board's discretion was applicant West Shore Solar, owner Carnegie Trails LLC. That's continued. Is that correct, Ms. Hitchin?
That is correct. One of the representatives that's involved with the West Shore Solar Project, which is agenda item number 4, has requested a continuance. I, as the planning staff, do not have an objection to that, so I would recommend that a motion be made to continue number 4, the West Shore Solar Project, to the October meeting.
And that would be October 10th if someone wants to make a motion.
That is correct.
Solar petition to the October 10th.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye, motion carries. Next one, Ms. Hitchin, I believe you said that number 5, the Morgan application, which was a conceptual plan, has also been withdrawn. Is that correct?
That is correct. The TRC reviewed John Morgan's application for 1 and 25 East Main Road this past Tuesday. Based on the comments, Mr. Morgan decided to withdraw until a further date. He'll resubmit later when he gets additional information.
Okay, thank you. So just for the folks who are here in the audience, that's number 4, West Shore Solar. That's going to be continued to October 10th. And number 5 was Morgan 1 and 25 East Main Road. That has been withdrawn till a later date, if anyone was here for those. Okay. Moving on. We have some minutes from August 14th. The August 14th Planning Board minutes, they were emailed with a link to the website. What is your pleasure?
I will make a motion to accept the minutes as written. Second.
Okay, I will not be voting on I'm sorry, I won't be voting on number 1, which was one that I recused myself from, but the rest I will vote on, which was the Narragansett Bay Club plan. Okay, we got a motion made and second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, on to the rest of our agenda. Next up on the agenda is preliminary plan public hearing for the Carlone minor subdivision owned by John Carlone, located at 22 and 24 Dexter Street, being map 31 lot 4 in a residential R20 zone, zoning district for development of a 5-lot minor subdivision involving extension of a public street, with final plan approval to be delegated to the administrative officer.
You can tell me whatever you want to put up on the screen and I can do it.
So if you could just state your name, address for the, you're losing you. State your name, address, company for the record. And if you have a business card, if you give it to the secretary, that would help as well.
Dave Tony, do business at Operating Designs at 90 Highland Avenue.
Dave, can you just make sure that
Here,
if it's green, it's on?
I'll repeat that. I'm Dave Manoni, and I'm doing business as Groundbreaking Designs, and that is at address 90 Highland Avenue in South Kingstown, Rhode Island.
And I notice there's members of the Carlone family here tonight, so you're
Yes.
authorized to represent this petition.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, if we can begin with sheet 2. Conditions. First of all, it's kind of brought to my attention that we have had some of the butters come into the town hall and they've expressed some concerns. So I'll first just go through a brief description of the project and then way I can address those concerns. And if we need to go into further detail, we can do that as well.
Yeah, so so typically what we'll do is we'll allow you to present your preliminary plan. The board can ask questions and we'll have some back and forth exchange, and then I'll open it up to the abutters.
All right,
Okay.
that's a good plan. Thank you, Edward. All right. So we have AP 31 lot 4. It's about 2.8 acres. And there's existing development on the site, as you can see. We have an existing 4-bedroom dwelling, as well as an existing 2-bedroom dwelling, each with shared driveway access and each with public water access, and each serviced by their own septic systems, which are not conformed. As well, on the site, we also have existing town drain lines, which are 12-inch reinforced concrete pipes that run from Lisa Terrace down along the southern and eastern property lines, across just west of the 2 existing dwellings, and up into Dexter Street, where they connect into an existing manhole. There are also existing sub-drains on the site that you can see, and they are the drain lines that are on the northern and western property limits, and they extend all the way across the northern property, and they as well discharge into the existing catch basin on Dexter Street. There has been previous DEM application on this site, and that's where the sub-drains came into play. Approximately 2007, there were test holes, wet season monitoring, and the intention was to do what we're doing now. The previous owner, John's father, had hoped to develop the site in the way that we're trying to do it is now. So that's what those sub-drains and old test holes were for. So if we go to the next sheet, please, Leah. The sheet shows what we're proposing to accomplish, hoping to accomplish. We'd like to extend the existing Lisa Terrace into the development as a cul-de-sac, subdivide the lot into 5 residential lots. We're also after having multiple conversations with the town, we are planning to remove the existing 12-inch reinforced concrete pipe, replace it with 18-inch reinforced concrete pipe, so improving the drainage system, and to run that straight across the property within the proposed town right-of-way, and then cross-country through the property into Dexter Street via an easement. We're also proposing to connect and create a 6-inch water line that runs through the property line adjacent to the aforementioned drain line that we're proposing. And that water line is a 6-inch line. So as of right now, the water department has a dead end on Lisa Terrace, and that this project will help improve that dead end water line, help connect it in with the system to improve the water system. At the end of the proposed cul-de-sac is where the drainage basin and drainage VMPs are proposed. We have received all of our state permits. We have our subdivision suitability from DEM, as well as our stormwater and RIPD's permits from DEM. So DEM has approved this plan for their use. And if you go to the next sheet, please, Leah.
Just to back up 1 second, did you say all the DEM permits are in or just the
Yes.
RIPDs?
Both.
Okay.
Yes. So this plan just shows in greater detail the proposed development with grading, call outs and whatnot. So that's it pretty much in a nutshell. Each building is proposed to be serviced with on-site wastewater treatment systems. And we are also proposing to improve and update the existing unconformed septic systems that are currently servicing the existing 2 dwellings. So they will have new permitted on-site wastewater treatment systems.
So just could you just go into a little more detail? I know you said there's an existing drainage easement that kind of goes around the circumference. That's
Yes.
the 12-inch pipe?
Yes, so that existing drain line is a 12-inch reinforced concrete pipe. And we're proposing to remove that drain line and put in a new 18-inch reinforced concrete pipe. And as well as put in a new easement for that pipeline.
And you had that discussion with the Public Works Director? and-
Yes, yeah, we had multiple discussions, including a TRC meeting.
Got it. Thank you.
And while we're talking about the TRC meeting, the fire marshal was there as well. So the fire marshal has looked at this plan, has approved the design of the cul-de-sac. And he also mentioned that hydrant was not necessary as well.
Does the plan in front of us have the extra hydrant or the hydrant that he wanted?
No, he said there was not a
Oh,
hydrant.
it was not,
Yeah,
okay. All right,
yes.
thank you. Anything else on,
That's pretty much it. So if we want to go into detail, further detail, something specific, questions.
okay, well, let's see if any members of the board have questions. Anything here?
Just one.
If you're talking to the mic, Kate.
Yes, I was just wondering if you're tying back into the drainage line on Dexter, does that then lead to East Main Road?
That drain line will go to East Main Road, yes.
Now, if you're adding CFS, will you be?
We are not increasing flow rates into the drain line. So part of our DEM permit was, and part of our review with the town, Public Works, is we are not allowed to increase flow rates off of the site. And so that is what the basin is designed to do. Up to the 100-year storm event.
Anything else, Kate?
That'd be it, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Hardy.
Is there any, I didn't see it, but any opportunity for a secondary, like emergency access if that road is blocked off? A lot of the places like this, there's been through a piece of property, only with the fire department having a gate and a gravel path to get out just in case. This at least is not a big wooded
Mhm.
thing, but if there's, say, an accident at that intersection, there's no way to get out of there. And
Did the fire department comment on the road configuration?
The fire department has reviewed this plan and deems it adequate. So
okay,
I didn't design any secondary access.
and if there was concern, anybody would have the concern, it would be them, so
Mhm.
I have no problem with it.
Okay,
But you still have paved access to the two existing homes, correct?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We don't have a report from the fire department, but I think Lee can confirm that the TRC met, fire department's part of that. And,
I submitted correspondence with the fire marshal, and at the TRC meeting, the fire marshal was present as well.
Can you confirm that, Leah?
I can confirm that we had a TRC meeting on August 7th. Fire marshal was there and is very satisfied with the proposal at hand and has adequate radius and accessibility to all 5 lots in the development.
and so not to get ahead of ourselves, but Leo, while we're at it, during the TRC, DPW would have been there as well. And also was favorable, or any comments from them?
Not only was DPW satisfied with the project, we met multiple times with Mr. Mainoni over the course of the last year, specifically in terms of drainage, especially with that easement that goes through the property, and our DPW staff has signed off on the project.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. I think we're good for now. If you want to sit down for a second.
Okay.
And we'll ask if there's any abutters have any questions or concerns, they can approach the podium. Please. Could you just please state your name and address for the record? And speaking, well, we'll give you a reasonable amount of time.
Okay,
Yeah.
because there's quite a bit. My name is Frank Rigo. I live at 2856 East Main Road. The property is owned by my mother and father's trust. It has been owned by our family for over 100 years. My great grandfather moved there in the late 1800s, designed most of that land that all this property now exists. We helped build St. Anthony's Church. That house the prop that I live in was given to my family by the priest. When the head mother died, she lived in that house. The house on the corner of Dexter Street was a convent. Okay, and it shut down. They passed the family on to us. If you're familiar with Portsmouth, has anybody lived here more than 50 years?
Yes,
More than 100?
no,
Okay. My elders have, my ancestors have. At the start of Dexter Street is a shelf plate. Okay, it's about 6 or 7 feet down. It runs all the way to the top of Fort Butts. Okay, my grandfather Jesse Ferreira, my great grandfather Jesse Ferreira Sr., built all of that land. He was the one who developed it all. Jesse Ferreira Terrace is named after my family. Jesse Drive, my grandfather. Michael and Lisa Terrace are named after my 2 cousins. Okay, we watched all that be developed. There is no way that this system will work. I have right now witnessed and several times and the fact that how the water drains off. Everything from Ferrera and Jesse overflows and it runs down to the corner of Dexter. All of that entire lot goes underwater. Okay. My backyard runs on a slope of over 10 feet drop from the top of my backyard to actually it's over a 15-foot drop from the top of the wall right on the other side of the first septic he's planning on putting in at the corner of Lisa Drive, all the way down to East Main Road. It's about a 25-foot drop and it's all rock slate. All the water runs down. Every time there's a big rainstorm, I get 5 inches of water in my basement and there's no way to stop it because it seeps up. I talked to the planner last week. She tells me that she informed me this new wastewater treatment system they have is could put off anywhere from 100 to 150 gallons of water a day on the normal family. That's going to be draining right into my backyard. Regardless of how clean it is and how it comes out, it's draining right into my backyard. There's several other things on here that I noticed. The perk test that was done in 2006. Okay. If you go down to the property, the perk pipes go into the ground diagonally. That's number one. Okay. The dates of the perk were January, February, and March. The ground's frozen. Nothing's going to be wet. It's impossible to get a wet reading in January, February, March here. I'm also a general contractor in the state of Rhode Island. I've been licensed contractor. I've built many homes here in this state for the last 20 years. And prior to that, I'm also a contractor in Florida and I know about retention ponds. There's no coverage in this plan on who is going to afford the cost of the maintenance of these sewer runoffs. Every one of the stormwater plan has a plan that refers back to the homeowners association. So that means you have a homeowners association of 5 families that is going to afford the cost to clean out those drains and take clean the cisterns and the drains after every major storm or have them inspected at the end of every year. There's nothing in there that tells you who's going to be, it just says homeowners association. Now, I don't know about anybody in here, but if I go to buy a house, then I'm going to end up paying the assessment on this, from my understanding, it goes about $300,000 to $350,000 a lot, which in my view, because I'm also a licensed realtor in Rhode Island, is impossible for where that location is. I mean, for bare land, you're putting a value of 350,000. It's not feasible. Okay. On top of that, then you're going to add the cost of building on top of that. You're going to add the cost of excavation and the infrastructure of this and this sewer drain water system. There's no way it's less than $1 million or $1.5 million based on just rough numbers that I ran. And I've been doing this for a long time. So where is all that money going to come from? That means you're going to have to turn around and sell these houses for $1.5 million, $2 million a piece on a tight little small area of land. Okay, that is jam-packed in there. There's no access going through the cul-de-sac to the other side of Dexter Drive. It's just a cul-de-sac. And if you look at the end of Lisa Drive, you actually go down there and look, there's not much space. Now, the other thing in the environmental study in the Department of Environmental Management, and I have factual proof, there are 3 great horned owls living on the top of that property. They are indigenous. They are native to Rhode Island. They're also endangered. And they have been living there for over 20 years. And they're in the 3rd generation. I've watched them and witnessed them have offspring every spring. And I take pictures and I have pictures of them. Those are endangered. No, there's no discussion of any kind of indigenous species on the property anywhere in this plan. There also happens to be, which I also have pictures of, starting on my property behind the shed at the top of my property, there's an entrance about probably about 18, 20 inches in diameter. It's a groundhog burrow. Okay, it runs 40 to 50 yards all the way underneath this entire property, and it's been there for over 50 years. And there are active groundhogs, and they just had babies last year. So, and as anybody no, there's nothing to address what they're going to disturb in digging up this property. I've looked at the depths of these tests at 104, 114 inches. I think some of these. There's no way that you cannot hit rock. I've dug it. I've dug my backyard. Okay, and it's no different from the field because it's 20 feet above me. Okay, I've dug my backyard. I can't get down more than 5 feet without hitting solid shelf. So there's a lot of concerns. I truly request that this at least be postponed and put off for more research, more inspection. I don't believe that a 18-inch drain will sustain all the off water that's going to come after a big storm. And I'm going to be completely underwater, not to mention my house and the apartment building that's right next to my house. And I know if Mr. Jack Gullison, who I'm not sure everybody's familiar with, he's a very large developer on this island. He builds a lot of homes. He owns that apartment building. He's Warner Realty in Newport. I'm sure he does not know what's taking place because he just had to replace his septic. He's a lot lower than this property and he's above ground. So I don't know how this system is going to work without these things sticking at least 5 feet above ground. Based on the minimum depth from the bottom of this system in this report to the rock, there's no way there's 5 feet. It's impossible. It can't be possible. I've dug it myself personally, and I'll swear to it. So I believe, please, I'm asking, there needs to be more research. There's going to be a lot disturbed. My cousin Anthony's present. He lives in the house going to be right in front of a retention pond. I've built dozens of retention ponds in my career. Okay. There's no plan in here about pest or rodent control. They are a breeding ground for every insect you can imagine. The mosquitoes will be overwhelming. And there's no way with the size of the drain off, with the amount of mulch, yard debris and everything else that runs down these yards when there's a rainstorm, because I get it. It all ends up in my yard. Piles of leaves and everything else is going to end up. There's a lot of trees around surrounding that property. There's going to be a lot of leaves in that retention pond. They're going to have to clean that out once a year. I'd like to know who's going to be responsible for that, because I know if I'm a person buying a house in that neighborhood, I'm not going to be responsible for cleaning out leaves out of a muddy pond every year. So I believe all these things need to be addressed before anything can, and not only protection for the people who live around it, but for protection of the people who are going to buy there. Because the people who are going to buy there, I believe, do not fully know what they're going to get themselves into by purchasing a property there.
Stay at the podium. I'm going to see if any of the members want to address you.
Yes.
Go ahead, Kate.
Did you say the water table depth has increased over?
Absolutely. There's been erosion since 2007 in my backyard as well as that field. I've watched it go down. I've been there for the last 9 years and I've literally watched it go down. My father offered to buy that property from Pete Cologne 3 different times, okay, for a sizable amount of money. Pete's exact words
That's
were,
irrelevant though,
you
sir.
can't build.
Yeah, it's irrelevant though.
It's not irrelevant. He said, I got a perk test and it didn't perk. Now I want to know how all of a sudden it perks.
So before we go on, the paper that you were talking about is the soil evaluation. So I do know that because I'm
Yep.
a professional in the field. Those are witnessed by the DEM. So they're not just done by the applicant. They're actually witnessed by the DEM. So those depths and the depth of ledge and the water tables, that's all witnessed and certified by the Department of Environmental Management.
I understand that, sir. I just did one down in Conference Point on Anthony Road. And I had the DEM there and I had Andy there and I had Larry from Principe Engineering in Tiverton. And I ran the excavator. I dug the hole while the man was present. So I know what's happening. But I'm telling you, there's no way. Well, of course you're going to get dry depths in the middle of winter. They dug this in 10-degree weather. In February, there's no way you're going to dig down and get water. in
But they
February.
just don't look for water, sir. They actually look at the soil strata
I-
and then determine where the water table would have moved inside it. So
I
there's an
understand that, but if
evaluation
there's-
that's done.
If there's puddles that are happening now, sir, after a big rain, you can literally look in that field and there's puddles of water. I'm not the only one to attest to it.
So
Anthony
let-
can attest to, Mr. Gardner can
Let's
attest.
finish,
to
let's finish,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson's questions.
All right, so basically 2006, since 2006, water table has changed.
Oh, absolutely.
And what is the depth do you think the shale is at?
In my backyard, I go about 6, 7 feet and I'm already hitting shale. And I know if you go, it gets higher right at the top of my property, right in front of, and if you look at this, if you look at the plan, okay, right at the top. Yeah, I can't see my house in here. Right at the top of my property, there's two small buildings. One is a garage. Okay. Let me get from Lisa. Okay, this is, wait a minute, Dexter Street.
Dexter's over here.
Yeah, okay. This is me. This,
No, that's
this is
the
the.
property.
Where?
This is East
You
Main.
want me to
Yeah, this is East
rotate
Main
it?
right here, right?
I can rotate.
Okay. I'm trying to look. Okay, here we go, right here. This is me right here.
No, that's
No, that's
still
part
that.
of the,
That's still that.
this is the flower shop right here.
Oh, so I'm over here.
Are you-
This is me right here. Okay, I'm looking at the bottom of it. I was gonna say, okay, this is me right here.
So you're
I have
AP
two
31 lot 2?
No,
Is that
it's
you?
2856.
Okay,
This is me here. Now, right here, there's a building, which is one of my garages. Right here, there's a small doll shed, okay, which was used to be called a dollhouse. The nuns that in the convent used to play there. Right next to it, there's a rock sticking out of my backyard. And it's probably about 2 feet high.
Ledge.
That's the top of the shelf,
okay, but that's
And
that's not on this property. That's on your
Yeah.
property.
but it's only 10 feet. from the wall.
I understand that. So you have to, all right, we get the
It
point.
runs that way.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Wilson.
That's all for now. Thank you.
Okay. Anything on this side? So I'm gonna allow the applicant to come back and address your concerns. And the way I have them is, first of all, you ask questions about the homeowners association.
Yes,
So that is a legal and binding document that gets filed on record that every owner in there will be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of those retention basins and the storm drainage system that's contained on the property.
okay.
So that'll take care of that one. You talked about the shale and the testing. We'll let the engineer kind of address that with what he has. And then you indicated that you talked about the septic systems and the approvals, and I think he can address that as well.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
And-
So we'll let the engineer come back to the podium.
Okay,
I also believe that the 18-inch pipe is twice the area, pretty much, of the 12-inch pipe, so there's gotta be a.
Sure.
Some-
Let's
some big
let-
help,
let's
yeah.
let Mr. Manoni come
Yeah.
back to the podium. So you heard the concerns, sir?
Yes. So I just want to clarify, in our discussion in the TRC meetings, the homeowners association will be responsible for the basin. The town will be responsible for the 18-inch RCP pipe.
Okay.
So I've been out on the site twice in 2022. And I dug and witnessed and signed off on, looks like 14 holes, 15 holes, plus 2 drainage holes. I wasn't lying.
So you have to address us because we can't hear you.
So I witnessed 15 holes alongside DEM in 2022, and that's the holes that were shown up there. The holes dug in 2006 and 7 are just old holes that are additional data. So we have over 30 holes that all agree on depths of 8, 9 feet without hitting any bedrock. Also, we spent 2 years during the wet season, February, March, which is when you look at test pipes. I'm sure you know, Edward, because you said you're a professional. But for those who don't know, that is when you go out and measure the wet season depths. The frost depth doesn't get down 9 feet, so there is water if there is water at that depth. And we measured down and we found water. And with those recordings are signed off by DEM and myself. And those depths to the groundwater are what we designed our on-site wastewater treatment systems on. You need a 3-foot separation from the bottom of the systems or a 2-foot separation depending on the system, and we meet all those separations. So the systems are designed adequately according to the state and according to all my 15 years of experience. And then as far as drainage goes, the basin, first of all, will be mostly dry 99.9% of the time. During the 1-year storm event, a storm that happens once every year, that frequency event, 2.7 inches of rain in 24 hours, the water elevation doesn't rise above the crushed stone surface. So that thing will be mostly dry. You're not going to be breeding bugs and mosquitoes in there.
So just to recap, the drainage system has been engineered by you, but also approved by the DEM and the
yeah.
town.
Yes,
Okay. The septic systems have been engineered by you, but approved by the DEM.
yeah. DEM has approved the drainage and the septic.
And the
The
septic,
town
okay.
has looked at the drainage as well.
Okay.
Well, they've looked at the whole plan, so.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what else we need to go. Oh. So does that
Yeah,
take
but
care of the?
That takes care of that test hole part. The wildlife, is there a
I
requirement?
have, so it was brought to my attention about the wildlife. As far as the great horned owl, it is not an endangered species.
But is there a requirement?
Let me finish, please. So its conservation status is low concern. It's not endangered. It is protected under the U.S. Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918, which I have printed out. And that act, and I quote, prohibits the taking of, including killing, capturing, selling, trading, and transporting of protected migratory birds without prior authorization by the Department of Interior, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So I do not see this development creating deaths, capturing, killing of great horned owls.
Sure.
So I don't think that is.
But is there there's no requirement by the state for any of the
No,
species that were on that? or the
no, there's no,
groundhogs?
that groundhogs are not endangered species as well.
Okay.
Sometimes with nesting, and I don't even know if they live on the property
Mhm.
or not as asserted. Is that your understanding?
What's the question?
The greyhound owl, is it just been observed around the site, or are you confirming they're on?
I have a picture. They live in 3 trees, okay? One of them, 2 of them are on that their property.
You can't talk from the audience, so you have to come back to the podium. I'm sorry.
just asking the petitioner if you've observed the owls. Are you aware of the owls? Are you going up?
I have seen an owl on the site. It was not on the property. It must have been in that shed, I believe.
That's their hunting area.
Okay. All right, we're just trying to determine a
Yeah.
board number.
Protected bird species, some of the regulations could just be that, any disturbances during a certain season, like there
Mhm.
could be a restricted mating season. I don't know.
Well, I just read what the act states. So that is, we can put a note on the plan, don't kill any owls.
Okay.
So that, does that take care of the wildlife?
That answers some of the wildlife.
Okay.
question, yeah. You have a question, Kate? Go ahead.
Yes, on your test hole data, I'm not familiar with FSL,
FSL, fine sandy loam,
CH,
channery,
VCH.
very channery.
And then we do see the decomposed shell,
Mhm.
shale.
Right.
Anything else, Kate?
ESHGWT, is that,
Estimated seasonal high groundwater table.
well, here we have some at 2 feet, some at 10 inches, some at 54, 60,
Right.
but, yeah, it does look, like, it's variable.
Which is, like I said, there's been a lot of holes dug. We spent over 2 years analyzing this with DEM. They made me wait. You can only do the wet season monitoring in the wet season, so March, February. So we had to wait 2 full years. We did it twice. And so it took a lot of time.
And all the seasonal high groundwater table was all certified by DEM.
All
That's what
certified
you
by
designed
DEM.
around.
And it was all monitored. So it's actual test pipe readings.
Okay.
So in DEM is certifying your plan that there's no increased runoff. And in addition to that, you've increased by more than double the size of the drain by going from 12 to 18. It's a little bit more than double, I think.
Yeah.
But that must have been for a reason. They must have believed that that was at capacity.
The town ordinance requires 18-inch minimum.
Okay.
So that's why that increase was.
Okay.
So that's beneficial to the town. You guys are getting a bigger pipe.
Any other things you want to answer on the, right now, before I ask if there's any more public comment?
Did I
I
miss
think you
anything?
touched everything, yeah.
Okay.
We might need you to come back.
You
Yeah.
might need to come back, so
Okay.
let's find out. Is there anybody else that would like to? Yes, ma'am. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Gardner. I live at 34 Dexter Street. And I just have 3 simple questions, I think. As far as the retention pond, is there any requirement for some type of barrier around it? There's a lot of children and pets in the area. I don't really know how
So
they work.
I think if it's at a certain depth, and I have to ask Ms. Hitchin, there is a requirement for a 4-foot chain link fence.
That is true. This specific retention basin, I believe, is 2 feet. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
2 feet. Okay.
Okay, my next question is, what seems to me to be on the property line is a cherry tree on my property and the other property. And I was wondering if there was some kind of plan for that, because it seems to be very close to the retention pond. So am I gonna lose the tree? Are they gonna replace it? I don't know how that works either.
Is it on your property?
I believe it's on the property line.
On the property line. So I would ask the engineer if it's not, what your thoughts are on the location of the cherry tree.
I do consider myself a tree hugger, believe it or not. And I did spend a lot of time fine grading that area so that it's not a lot of cut or fill right along the property line. And that tree is located there and I knew it was there.
Mhm.
So with that grading, it should be fine.
So the
And we can-
intention is to save
The
that tree.
intention is to save it. I
Okay,
don't see
And
any.
it's right where my arrow is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
correct.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, that's 2 questions.
Yep, I have one more.
Sure thing.
My last one is what the proposed exterior lighting options would be around the cul-de-sac.
So typically, we don't require lighting on, like a street light.
Mhm.
We don't require street lighting on the cul-de-sac. So
Okay.
it will,
So does that mean it won't get done, or it's at the option of the builder?
it's at the option of the builder, but I don't know if there's street lights on Lisa or not. I've never been down there at night, but there's no requirement then to put street lighting. It's all underground utilities, I assume, in this piece. So we don't
Okay.
have a requirement for that.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Anyone else from the audience would like to speak on this petition? Is it, okay. Oh, yeah, Mr. Rego, please come back up.
Question still hasn't been addressed is if it was not mentioned in you said it was mentioned in the environmental study that any species on the property wouldn't be disturbed? Are they aware of that? Because you just did when you came up, you were aware there was now there, but you didn't have it. No study was done?
But we don't have a requirement. If it's not a DEM designated area for
Mhm.
wildlife or an endangered species, we don't have a town requirement that requires the applicant to have to research that.
Okay. Thank you.
All righty. Any other petitioner, I mean, any other audience members like to address the petition? So before I go back to the board, Mr. Minoni, is there any closing comments, anything else you want to talk about before we deliberate?
Guess what I'll say is, sure, it probably doesn't matter to anyone, but I empathize with all those abutters around here who are dislike this development. I understand that it's nice to have a pretty field in your backyard and, you know, extra development is usually unnecessary, but we put a lot of effort in this, and I think it matches the town in that area. It matches Lisa Terrace, the design of it. The houses are not overwhelming in size. And I think that this will, when it's complete, look like a nice development. It'll match the existing area.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hitchin, I know we have a staff report. And I wanted to, I believe you made a conclusion, or your office made a conclusion that there's no required relief, no waivers, and that this is really a by right project requiring none of the above. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that as it's designed right now, it meets all the town's lot size, frontage, and minimum building area requirements?
That is correct.
Okay. And I think everyone has a copy of the staff report.
And the petitioner's looking for
Preliminary plan,
approval at this meeting.
that's correct. All right, any other comments from board members? What's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to, I'd like to make a motion to grant preliminary plan approval for the Carlone minor subdivision. And add to that with allowing for final plan approval, they'll be delegated to the administrative officer and incorporating the standard findings of fact. I don't know if I need to read those out.
No, there's 5 of them
That's the motion.
that are incorporated in Ms. Hitchin's staff report.
This
Correct.
findings of fact, the 5 in Ms. Hitchin's staff report, correct?
All right, there's a motion made. Is there a second?
I guess I will second that
All right,
with the hopes that the ground is what they say. And we have to go by that because they're the professionals that have seen it, but
okay. We've got a motion made by Mr. Tibbet, second by Mr. Harding. Any further discussion on the motion? I'm gonna call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, one opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carries. Motion carries. So preliminary plan is approved. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Rigo. Please.
How is it appealed? Do I need to get an attorney? Do I need to, there's not been enough research on this project, I'm telling you. I know this property, been there all my life. There's not been enough research done. And everything you see here is not what's there and is not what it seems.
Okay, again, I appreciate your opinion. We have to go by what the experts have told us.
Okay?
We have experts in engineering, we have experts from the state, we have experts from our town. So we make a ruling based on those facts and findings. If you are uncomfortable with that, I direct you to come back and talk to Ms. Hitchin or the town
So
solicitor.
if I get a petition signed by everybody in the surrounding neighborhood that opposes this, would you then reconsider looking at it again?
We look at the facts, sir. not-
Okay,
so-
but the facts are
Hold on, go
not
ahead,
all
go
there.
ahead.
I think it's incumbent on any abutter who objects to, they get their own legal advice and
Right.
and act accordingly.
Okay, if the solicitor is advising, if you are in disagreement, you should obtain your own solicitor, your own legal advice and then come back to the town.
What is the timeline until he gets final approval?
I don't know. It really depends on some of the questions that we raised tonight, and he has to come back and show them to the administrative officer.
Will all the abutters be notified prior to that final approval being given?
They will not.
Why?
Because you were notified tonight for this preliminary plan, and under the new state law, you do not have to be notified for final approval.
Wow. Okay. So an attorney should be contacted and then file whatever motion needs to be
I
filed.
can't advise you on your legal.
No, I'm just asking if,
Yes.
if I have that
If
done.
you have it, you should talk
It
to an
stops
attorney.
the process,
You should
correct?
talk to an attorney.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Next up on our agenda is item number 6. We'll give everybody a minute to, if anyone's leaving. And then we're going to move on to plan review for Spaceport LLC.
They just said we were next, I think.
Mrs. Chappelle, hold on one second. I gotta go back to my agenda item and read it for the record. This is a plan review for a pre-application for Spaceport LLC. Applicant and owner for property located at 0 High Point Avenue, tax assessors map 38, lot 19, zone light industrial, limited light industry. The applicant is requested to construct an 80 by 196-foot boat storage facility, which requires dimensional variance and special use permit due to the size larger than 7,500 square feet. It qualifies as a major land development, unified development review. The submitted application is going to be a pre-application. There will be no vote taking tonight. Mr. Chappelle.
How are you, everyone? Nice to see you. I'm just really going to give you a preliminary of what this is. That's all it's on for. And one of the reasons it's on as a preliminary is because of the new state rules for the side of the building, size of the building. This gets done as a major plan comprehensive permit review. And as a major plan comprehensive permit review, it comes back to you as master and preliminary and final, which can be combined. But it's kind of new to the town and it's a little new to the zoning ordinance. Doesn't really say whether it goes to design review or not go to design review, but we're going to design review. And by getting here conceptually today, it's part of the step to get us referred over to the design review. We also have had a full TRC or technical review committee. We did that. You may or not have notes, but to the extent you don't, I'm going to tell you what happened and what you'll see when you see us come back. So first, we should understand that this is a project that is a warehouse in the industrial park, and it is a permitted use in every heavy industry zone, in every light industry zone, and even in commercial zones. But for those of you that haven't, I know you have because we did the Kirby building, but in the industrial park, there's a special set of circumstances. It's different than your general limited light. And it says, here's what can be there and here's what can't. We fit in there. But when the town passed the limited light industry, which is only this industrial park, they said every use will be a special use permit. Special use permits are not your forte because we go to the zoning board. Not anymore because the state has the new comprehensive permit. So the planning board now acts on the special use permit, which is an A through J criteria I will go over with you when we get here. But it's basically we don't invade light and space. We meet the comprehensive plan. We don't affect the neighbors. We don't affect surrounding land values. And we're more than prepared to do that because we are a light type of industrial use in a limited light park. Mr. Phillips, who is with me, that is the head of the company, will give us a little bit about what the proposed building is going to be used for. Karen Beck, I think you've all seen before from Mr. Principe's office, has some preliminary statements on the challenges of this site because it's got some wetlands on it and it's got some cliffs. But basically, it's just a good-looking building designed for storage. But when we come back, you'll be looking at it the way planning boards always look and say, hey, how's my drainage? And does the fire department happy? And is DPW happy? And is traffic flow and radius is done? And all the things that you normally look at when you do a design site review, but you'll also be granting or not granting a special use permit. And in this case, a single variance, because normally, again, variances went to the zoning board, but under the comp permit, you vote on a variance first after hearing the petition and then move on to the rest of it. The reason there's a variance In heavy industry, we have 50-foot side yard setbacks all over town. In all of the limited light, the light industry lots, most of those along West Main Road, we have 30-foot setbacks. In this particular area, when they did the special restrictions for the industrial park, they put 50-foot sidebacks lines in, not 30. Not sure I ever understood why the sideline should be larger in an industrial park than other light industry lots that abutted residentials, but that's what they did, and there have been variances granted that I'll point out next time. But we are asking because of the site challenges, and we'll hear from at full hearing why Principi's Engineering, both Karen and Tom, believe that we can't slide the building further. And if you get a chance to go down and look at the site between now and when we come back, you'll see that it is heavily sloped, and there's cut in the front and cut in the back and fill in the front, trying to get a plateau to build on. And based on the topography, as well as the need for drainage swales, as well as the buffers around the wetlands, this building is it's actually 34 feet, I think, away from the boundary, but 30 feet from a back stairway that allows fire access to the mezzanine. So that you're going to hear. When we went to the TRC, the Technical Review Committee, as you all know, we have representatives from the Portsmouth Police Department, we have representatives from the Fire Department, we have Brian Woodhead from DPW. There were a few things that you would normally see and you will see, but I'll tell you what my opinion of what happened, and Leah can certainly correct me. Mr. Woodhead had one of the same concerns he always had, and that is that this particular parking area, because of the wetlands and all of the pavement, will be pervious parking, pervious pavement. Because it's pervious pavement, they want to make sure that you put in a maintenance plan for the pervious pavement and that it be followed, because pervious pavement becomes troublesome if we don't have a decent plan, and your ability to enforce it is based on you putting it correctly into your decision. I don't believe he had any other problems. We are waiting on Jessica from the Water Department, who reviewed it at the TRC, preliminarily said, yeah, I anticipate that this is going to need water. The water that you need for a warehouse, when we explain the use of restaurant equipment storage and boat storage, you'll see is very low. But because of the size of the building, the fire department wants a sprinkler system. Because of the sprinkler system, a decent main type, much larger pipe needs to be brought in. Because there's a moratorium on High Point Road, because it has been paved within X years, we have to shoot under that road to do it. Because of the moratorium, we have to demonstrate to Brian Woodhead that if we can't shoot under the road and we go to cut that road, we have to demonstrate to Mr. Woodhead that there's an exigent circumstances, and that is that a well is not adequate on this property. A well's adequate to run the two bathrooms or whatever we need. That's not the issue. Well's not adequate to run the sprinkler system that is required by the fire department. So we're in the process of seeing whether it can be done with a bullet or a missile, as you know, under the road. If it can't be done, an application to DBW for exigent circumstances, which generally just means we'll have to repave a wide swath instead of a cut. But we should be all set. The fire department also, from your plans, there's going to be a modification. They wanted to make sure we could drive 360 degrees around the building. We varied that a number of times, including when we just did the senior center. Remember, it was just trying to get it as close we can and not all the way around. But the new fire chief wanted it all around. Tom and Karen went back to work between the last 2 days, figured out a way to get it all the way around. So I believe the fire department will be happy because there will be no variances requested from their current rules. One of those variances that you've given us that they don't like is matting, gravel, things that are cheaper, things that are easier, things that may even be more economically friendly. He wants pavement. I want to be able to drive all the way around. One of the reasons he wants to drive around is because it's so narrow back there with 30 feet and the building's so long. if something bad happens, he needs an exit strategy for his fire department, and we certainly understood that, which is why we went back to the drawing board on that. So you're going to hear that the drainage calculations work, and Principal Engineering at the time is going to be able to do that for you. You're going to hear that the turning radiuses work. We will, by then, we'll have a design review to tell you, hopefully, that the building we designed is aesthetically pleasing, made of materials that are normally acceptable to Portsmouth, certainly in this park, that the landscape plan has been approved and recommended. And we, again, don't expect to be asking for any deviation from the recommendations we see them make on a normal basis. So it's an industrial building and industrial park. Who's Mr. Phillips? Mr. Phillips owns the present company. He owns companies in Newport and tells us that storage is a need. His company owns 7 restaurants.
Yes.
And they store things like the patio furniture, chairs, liquor that's bought at volume, freezers that have commodity type meats. We talked about lobster, for instance, and when there's some buying power, that's what these restaurants do. So there is no pedestrian traffic that's going here. There's no people pulling in and out to buy anything there. There's no retail sales. It is clearly storage. The building's broken up into a few pieces. We'll show you all those plans. Some of that is so that my sub-companies of Restaurant 1 don't combine their furniture with Restaurant 2. That's why there's a number of different doors available for everybody. They also have a business with some boats.
We have a restaurant and marina combo.
Restaurant and marina combo. They store some boats. These are not always large boats, but again, the storage is inside and the parking requirements for a warehouse are met. And it came up same as it did in, if you recall, the DeCastro petition. What happens if 3 separate companies own this? And how do I know it's not going to be something that requires more parking? Part of the restrictions are that the tenant, whether they're a guy with 6 companies or multiple companies, all must fit the criteria of the tenant that the parking was approved for, which means warehouse space with the limited office space that we have proposed in the building. The building, it doesn't have any height problems. It's 1 story, but there will be some testimony on that because it's on a slope. And as you know, when you look at buildings on a slope, you have to find the average grade. So Karen and Tom will be prepared to tell you, here's the average grade, here's the building, here's our height requirement. We are below it without a variance. If you recall, again, maybe the senior center, that might have been 24 feet in the front and 38 feet in the back. And the first thing that anybody sees when they look at it as a neighbor is the east side elevation is more than 35 feet. That must require a variance. No, not in the event the existing grade and the average grade slope it to below the limit. I think we're a couple feet below it, but we are below it, but we'll show you that. So with that said, if you have any questions, Mr. Phillips, that's fine. If Leah has anything to add regarding the TRC and any comments they made that I haven't referenced, that's fine. If there's anything that you have concerns with that you think I should be addressing at either design review or have a better explanation for before I come back to you again, that's fine. That's what we're hoping for tonight is input, and that's what this is for. They can swear you in. Just state your name and address.
Sure. Larry Phillips, 108 Catherine Street in Newport. I am.
So Larry, like usual, I did too much of the talking, but
Yeah,
is
said
it
it all.
is it accurate to say that your group owns 7 restaurants on the island, or how many on the island, I guess?
All 7 are on the island. My partner and I own several restaurants. One of our restaurants also has a marina, and we have a regatta center there. We do a lot of sailboat racing, so we have inflatable ribs that are owned by us that we need to store in the winter. And we've been borrowing space here and there over the years, and we're really just out of space, and there's just nothing in Newport. We've been looking for years, and this came up, and it's it's a bit of a challenging site, but it's the perfect size for us. So it'll be our boats in the winter. It's really a wintertime storage facility for us. We buy in bulk for the restaurants over the winter and then take down that inventory over the summer. So we need space for that. And then the wintertime, we need to store all our patio chairs, tables, and just general inventory. So that's really what this building will be used for. There's no employees planning on being in the building. It really will be very sporadic. Box truck goes, picks stuff up, drops it off. That's essentially it.
So you're currently storing the same things you need to store, just in other places.
They're everywhere.
And you currently are using box truck. I mean, one of the questions I always hear is this a tractor trailer semis for getting in and out of this place, or is this box trucks and?
No,
traditionally
we
used-
rent a 15-foot U-Haul to move stuff right now. If we had delivery, it's in about the same size truck. And our boats are actually stored in the same park now. So we're just getting tired of paying other people to store our own boats.
So you're,
So, yeah.
the boat aspect of this is already there. Is that the Kirby building?
Kirby, yeah, so.
Right, that turned out to be boat and I will tell you that, I get more, I said this to TRC, I get more requests in my office for locations of boat building storage than anything else by far lately. So again, it's very preliminary. You'll see the building. Did you have pictures of the building? Yeah. You attempted to, we told you the rules in Portsmouth, thou shalt not build an ugly building, right?
Yeah, I think it looks good.
And you hired an architect to do it,
Yes,
and you have design features on that we'll talk to the design board review, but this is not your father's metal storage building.
right.
And what the mezzanine inside, what does that do for you?
It just helps us separate and kind of makes the space efficient. We can have dry goods upstairs that don't weigh as much. Liquor can be downstairs.
And that's
it's-
just a portion of the building, right?
Right, it's divided by restaurant, so someone from one restaurant doesn't take stock from another restaurant.
Well, the
So,
reason I mentioned the mezzanine is we wouldn't need a variance as large on the back side if it wasn't for a stairway, and the stairway was required to, as a fire code access to the mezzanine, is that right?
right, I don't know the.
And remember, when you grant special use permits, the zoning board, now you, Kevin will tell you, you grant conditions, and those, if it was the smell of fiberglass, because I remember the neighbors complaining, for boat building, then you make special conditions to say, all due respect, Corp, I'm gonna put your money where your mouth is. You told us you were stored your boats and there was no boat building. No boat building is allowed as a condition of our special use permit.
Right.
And again, if we make a representation, then it's fine, of course, to make a condition on that and actually proper to do so.
Anything else, Mr. Harding? Mr. Tibbetts?
I was just gonna say,
Well, I think we got to the course pavement because we start by designing a building that meets our needs. And I can tell you the first design did not have the fire lanes going all along the back. And when the fire department says I need a 20-foot wide paved driveway on 200 and some feet of lineal space, my engineer looked at me and said, well, that's gonna change my drainage calculations substantially. And the only way to solve that, from what I understand, was to go from impervious to pervious and to make the retention ponds bigger and do all the things that need to be done to retain water, so that one of the biggest problems we always get is, did we do that right? So we had to over-design that. And because of wetlands, remember DEM is involved. Tommy told us yesterday, Karen can testify, but she said DEM has already delineated the wetlands and already approved the septic plan. And they have a separate review, I guess, still of the final drainage plan, right? They're already done?
I think
So
the
they've already approved the drainage plan.
So there is pervious pavement that the fire department accepts. We had some stuff on the map where, you know, some roads in private, you know, going down that the fire department couldn't approve.
Yesterday, when we were there, the developer, court, as a lawyer, we used to do geotech grid,
Yeah.
which, as long as my truck doesn't sig, it's great, looks like grass, we mow it, life is good. Fire department, no. We have asked for gravel, which I think can be a very solid road, and, you know, we still got 40 states that have nothing but gravel roads, it seems, in half the world. But this particular fire chief has been pretty adamant about wanting pavement. He did not draw a line between pervious and non-pervious pavement, and clearly was aware of it, because there was a fairly lengthy discussion from Brian Woodhead about, hey, you're gonna have a maintenance plan and it has to be cleaned out, and you understand that, and it breaks and it needs to be repaired. So I'm comfortable, Leah can tell you, that I believe this fire chief did not draw any distinction and was okay with pervious pavement. It looks like a bigger lot, but it really isn't with the setbacks. So, and we'll show you an aerial next time, but a side yard setback is obvious, has good reasons. I don't want a building too close to my residence, and I don't want it even close to my other business. Because of the topography, look how far the next building up happens with the same topography, should be pushed in the other direction. So that it won't give the spatial effect of two buildings, both being 20 or 30 feet from the lot line. It'll give the spatial effect of a large area between the buildings. And I think that's important. When you look at somebody had an aerial view of the park, it's still gonna look separated.
Anything else, Mr. Tibbetts? Okay,
Just because I brought her here, I'd like to introduce her and swear her in. And I promise I won't be long.
yeah, just name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Karen Beck. I'm an employee of Principe Engineering located in Tiverton, Rhode Island.
Are you yourself an engineer?
I am not an engineer. I am a registered landscape architect
Okay,
with 40 years of experience in civil engineering firms.
perfect.
And not that she isn't the first one I would want here, because she's the one, quite frankly, I've been dealing with most on this project. But Tommy extends his apologies. He's at another meeting tonight. And that's why we're here at Conceptual. But you have been actively involved in all of this and
Yes.
dealing with me. And you heard me state that one of our concerns was there's a 50-foot setback in, for a side yard in this particular park, even though there's a 30-foot setback in the rest of the town for light industry properties, correct?
That is correct.
And I start out by saying, excuse me, ma'am, but please design this with no variances, correct?
Yes, you do.
And then I yell and say it again. And then you come back and say, of course, it's
Sorry.
not possible given this. And in this case, can you just tell us why the building has to be kind of moved back in that area? And why in this particular case would be asking for the variance?
Yes, and I think the best plan, Leah, is going to be the grading plan. Grading and utility, I think it's both. Next one. Yeah, that one right there. So, I don't know, I can speak really loud enough, but I need to look at the plan at the same time so I can make sure that I'm referencing what you're looking at. As has been mentioned, and if you've been out to the site, it's a very steep site. And it's a relatively large building. With the wetland located on this property, actually encroaching the biological wetland, encroaching onto the lot. And then at the time we submitted it to DEM, there was a 50-foot perimeter wetland that was applicable. So we have to keep all of our disturbances outside of those two areas. We cannot grade within it. We cannot cut trees within it. We cannot do anything within that 50-foot perimeter wetland. So in order to get an 80 by 126-foot building in there, and then get the access that's required, especially with turning radii for fire engines and for boat trailers and the required parking area, et cetera. We had to push the building as close to the western property line as was possible. It has always been designed, quite frankly, with permeable pavement. And the reason being is the two basins that you see are only sized for the roof area. That was the sum total of the area that we had available to us for an infiltration basin, and it's only for the roof area. Those two basins infiltrate up to including the 100-year storm event. So the roof is 100% infiltrated into the ground with these two infiltration basins. We did not have enough room to make those basins any bigger to include any impervious pavement areas. So the pavement had to be, from the get-go, a permeable pavement, but it has been designed per the Rhode Island Stormwater Standards Manual. So as far as the fire engine and the weight of those things is concerned, it has to have a certain amount of storage capacity below it. It's got to have a certain amount of gravel area underneath it. It has a geotextile fabric. It's all been designed per those standards. So it does meet the stability requirements for a fire engine. We did try to talk the fire chief into a different type of fire access lane because the majority of the site, he'd have access basically, you know, for the majority of the building. But he really did want pavement clearly available to him. So basically, we had to provide that fire access lane, and it's going to be gated. So it'll have the Knox box that only the fire.
It's gonna be restricted to.
Yes.
Or no parking.
That's correct. No parking, no access for anything other than emergency vehicles. Through the TRC meeting, I know that they came back, I did coordinate with the fire department and had received approval, as far as I knew, on the turning radius and the length of the fire access lane. At the TRC, there was some modification to that. They wanted increased turning radius, and they want the fire access lane all the way out to High Point Avenue.
I think that what they said was they wanted Tommy to recheck the turning radius to make sure you were both using the same standards of 22 or 25. We told him we would do that. And this drawing, as you see, that fire lane stops about 3/4 from the end of the building. When you come back, he wanted that to go back and have a second entrance on High Point. The concern, as you can see, is if he was all the way at the end of that and there was some collapse in the building because of a fire in this northeast corner, it could trap his fire trucks and he wouldn't be able to pull out backwards. So he thought as an emergency, he needed to swing. So it comes down, it swings out by closer to the property line at that mezzanine and carries back out to High Point Road under the final that you'll see based on yesterday or the day before's TRC.
And the reason why we originally didn't show that is because there's a 20-foot utility easement that we were trying to stay out of with any of this pavement area or traversing or anything like that. So that was the original intent, was not to put anything on that side, but it can be done. We will add it. The grading, as you can see, coming off of High Point Avenue is relatively steep. We have to have a septic system that has been approved by DEM for the site. We are proposing retaining walls, again, to minimize the amount of grading that we have to do, trying to stay out of that 50-foot perimeter wetland. It's a tiered retaining wall system, trying to keep the height of the retaining walls relatively shallow. For the most part, they're 5 feet steps. The highest point is at the turn right there where it says 260, because you can see that's where the 50-foot perimeter wetland gets the closest, and we couldn't grade into that area. So at that point, it's 8 feet, but that's the highest that the retaining wall gets on the site. But basically, we had to submit to DEM OWTS to get approval for the septic system. We had to submit to DEM freshwater wetlands for a wetlands permit. It is more than an acre of disturbance, so we also have a stormwater permit and a RIPD's permit. All of those have been approved. So the drainage design has been approved. The porous pavement has been approved by DEM, and as part of that RIPD's and stormwater permit, we are required to provide them an operation and maintenance manual, which explains exactly what the property owner has to do in order to maintain that permeable pavement, and that's been discussed with Mr. Phillips. So that's all been approved, and the permit, the wetlands permit expires in 2027, I believe. We just got it the end of 2023. Other than that, as was discussed, the water line, Tom has been out to the site. He believes that they can missile underneath High Point Avenue with 2 water lines, one for the fire and one for the domestic. So that shouldn't be an issue. And I think that is it.
Okay.
Have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Beck? Well done.
Thing I ask is if you have any concerns from looking at any of the plans that you want us to either take to design review or take back to the engineers, this is hopefully one of the reasons we come here tonight. I think it's well designed. I'm not trying to pass anything by. I don't see anything, but that doesn't mean that you don't, obviously.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Personally, I think you did a nice job with the architectural. I think it looks great. It's a good use of that parcel. Low density, low intensity.
Is there one more?
I think that's the last one. I was told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Industrial land's a dying breed here.
Done your homework.
All right, well, thank you as always, and we'll see you next month.
Great.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting it on. Appreciate it.
All right, I don't think there's anything else on our agenda. What's your pleasure? Motion, make a motion to adjourn. Dave Garso, seconded by Luke Harding. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, meeting's adjourned.